I'm excited for this for a couple of reasons. Number one, our friends at Datto are doing a tips, tricks, and techniques, and there's experts from different areas of Datto. But my name's Steve Alexander from MSP-Ignite. We're the host of this, and I've been told that all I have to do from this point forward is welcome you all. And I'm turning this over to you, Jeff, or you, Des?
Me, I'll just start the introduction.
Oh, here's Desraie Thomas from Datto. Take it away, Des.
Perfect. So thank you so much, Steve. Just to introduce myself, if anyone hasn't met me, I feel like looking at this, I've met a good chunk of you guys. Desraie, Datto, I'm one of the channel development managers here at Datto. And what I wanted, when Steve and I were talking about this, I really wanted to give you guys an opportunity to work with some SEs and have that open conversation. And really, they're going to go through a lot of information. Jeff's going to drive a lot of things, but this whole thing will be really driven by you. So please feel free to ask them questions, interact with them in the chat. If you're that comfortable, they'll be monitoring the chat, or if you want to just yell things out and scream and tell Jeff that he looks funny with his hat, that's also fine. I'm cool with that. And then Tulsie, if you want to introduce yourself, go ahead.
Yeah, hey guys. I mean, this is probably going to be the first time any one of you actually meet me. There's some familiar faces here, so again, I'm Tulsie Narine. I'm one of the solution engineers here at Datto. I focus predominantly on BCDR. But my goal here today is to talk BCDR. If you have questions on that, from local backup to disaster recovery, I'm your guy for the next little while. Bring those questions to us. We want to see how best we can actually help you understand what Datto offers and how we can actually help you with your solutions today.
And then Diego, you want to introduce yourself, please, and thank you.
Sure, yeah, nice to virtually meet everybody here. My name is Diego. I've been with the company Autotask, now Datto, for about 8 years. Actually started out in product support. So those of you that have been around for that long, I might have resolved one of your tickets. Then I went on to implemented a number of clients, and my love and joy is the PSA. So that's my main focus. And now I'm part of the solutions engineering group along with Jeff and Tulsie. So glad to be here.
And then the legendary Jeff Dreil. If you guys have never met him, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Of course. So my name is Jeff Dreil. I'm one of the senior SEs here at Datto. I specialize very specifically in RMM, but have been forced to expand that into other technology areas that Datto provides, and really kind of positioning myself as the presenter of what we call the One Datto platform, or the One Datto multifaceted technology stack, as I like to call it. That's a reason why I'm not in marketing, actually. And needless to say, been in RMM on the vendor side for, give or take 15 years on and off. Oh, somebody's off mute there, but that's okay. Anyway, so yeah, I thought we'd bring this together. So Des, I don't know, do you want me to just kind of get going, or do you want to? Oh,
absolutely.
No?
You can take it off from here. Steve and I are going to go for a drink.
Right on. Sounds good. So Des brought this opportunity to my attention. And for those of you that don't know me, I actually spent many years on the business development side as well. I used to work alongside Rob Ray prior to the Datto days, actually, for another company called Level Platforms, which had an okay RMM tool back then. But needless to say, been in the space for a long time. And I found this opportunity very interesting, because this is the first time I've taken the time to actually go public with an open camera. It's the first time as well in this state. So it's really kind of like the times, the market, the landscape, how it's all changed, everything that's happened across the board in the past year and a half and whatnot. It's created a new energy, a new reinvigorating approach to how communication, how meetings are done. And I thought this would be fun. So when Des brought this, said, hey, I've got this group, I want to do this thing about tips and tricks. I was like, well, you know what? We have a pretty deep product stack. I'm just an RMM guy with a little bit of biz dev experience, but what do you say we bring in a couple of big guns? And because when we took a look at the registrations for this event here, it is a crazy mix, man. There is some of you folks use one product, some of you use 3 or 4 of them, some of you use all, some of you use none. So how do you go about necessarily tailoring content to such a mixed bag of an audience, right? Often and historically, it would be, here's your partners that use the product, here's your prospects that use the product, right? And then all these sort of business development content would be directed for that audience, right? So this is unique. So I thought, well, you know what? what if we can do something different and bring in some solution engineers that have years and years of experience around each core product stack? So that was the idea here. Des thought it was great, so I roped in Diego, who introduced himself as one of the PSA assassins here. Tulsie, of course, on the BCDR side, has incredible, long-standing, deep experience, actually configuring things and doing a lot of stuff and even experimenting on some of the alpha technologies we have coming out down the road here at Datto. So Tulsie is an incredible resource for networking, for BCDR. When it comes to PSA, business process, some of even our new stuff like the Datto Commerce on the quoting side, which is a recent development, sort of all that business management, how that connects and links into technologies is definitely Diego's forte. And mine, of course, is RMM. I've been working with RMM since about 2006 on and off. I actually spent some time at Rapid Fire Tools as a SE and a product marketing manager. I also spent some time at IT Clue as a business development executive, but definitely found my home here as a senior SE specifically for RMM here at Datto. And I actually got the job with Autotask, and about a month into it, they're like, hey, you just got merged into Datto. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting, because a number of my old colleagues of whom I used to work with at Level Platforms actually make up the entire Canadian office here at Datto. So I found myself being an SE for a bunch of sales guys that I was their SE for back in like 2008. So kind of hilarious how that worked out. And further to that, when I found out I was an SE for a hardware company, my first question was, can I have all this stuff? And the answer was, yes, you can have all this stuff. So they shipped me all the gear. So walking with about $9,000 worth of backup gear and enterprise grade networking in my 1,000-foot bungalow is actually kind of fun and interesting. So definitely some perks there. And to go back to what I'm talking about in terms of the audience, it's a tricky one, right? It's a mixed bag. Like I said, there's ranges of levels of experience and exposure to the different products and technology stacks that Datto offers. And I would say that over the past, 2 to 3 years or so, really not including the Datto Commerce piece, Datto hasn't really made any huge mergers or acquisitions or anything like that. And what that's allowed us to do over the past few years straight is really develop technology. Just develop technology, do the R&D, develop the stuff, get it out in the market and make it work. Make it work in ways that nobody else does today. And I would say only over the last couple of months, maybe the last 5 or 6 months or so, have the fruits of those labors really started to come out in the technology stack. So one of the things that we've been doing internally on a grand scale is training the sales, like the customer facing side of the organization to not be so siloed, right? With big mergers that happened years ago, we had us sort of legacy Autotask guys that were big on RMM and don't know anything about backup, and then same vice versa. You got backup guys that have been working for Datto for years, and now they've got to learn RMM and PSA, and they, it's a whole new understanding. It's a whole new way to think in the marketplace. So when you combine sort of the efforts we've done corporately to train and further educate the way that our teams approach the market, especially on the partner facing and customer and prospect facing side, all coincides with the technology capabilities that have been surfacing over the past 4, 5, 6 months. And there's actually a number of industry firsts that we've accomplished in our technology stack that nobody else has done. And so all that being said, what I thought I could do is kind of give you like maybe a high level, what I call One Datto sort of presentation, 10,000-foot view. And the goal of that sort of opening presentation, and first of all, no PowerPoint, there's no slides. I'm going right into technology when I share my screen here, by the way. And so I figured there's going to be something for everybody, right? Everybody's going to know about some of the stuff that's in there, but my goal is to, show the folks on here that use BCDR but don't know RMM or PSA, give you a little hint, a little teaser taste of something interesting. Same with vice versa. The folks on here that are heavy in RMM perhaps have been using the PSA for a very long time. I'm going to show you a couple of things that the BCDR can do. So mine's going to be sort of high level, all encompassing. Then if that does not spur any questions whatsoever, but I imagine it will, and I hope it will, I've got Tulsie on board here. He's got some killer tips and tricks and very unique, fresh content that he would potentially like to share with you if we need to. And so we can dig into that. I've got a little section as well that I've saved up that's fresh and unique, and Diego's got some really great stuff on some cool new functionality specifically within the PSA. So I'm going to go all encompassing, show you a bunch of things, a whole bunch of thousands of screens. Everybody's going to go, ooh, wow, that's neat. And then if we got questions, great, we'll hammer them out. We've got the brains here, the think tank here that should be able to cover any questions you might have. I would invite you to attempt to stump the chump, because I would be impressed if you pulled it off. So that being said, let me go ahead and jump my screen. Any questions so far? Anything anybody want to throw out there before I jump into the tech a little bit here?
Please don't try to stump the chump.
Oh, come on. They're not going to get you, Diego. It hasn't happened to you in 10 years.
Just kidding.
All righty. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see my screen there momentarily, and there should be lots of colors and lines and graphics and images and words and numbers and such that can all be, a lot to take in. And being in this role, and my SE colleagues I'm sure can confer, is we talk to a lot of companies, right? We talk to thousands, hundreds, 1,000 at least in a year, give or take. So we manage somewhere around 1,000 calls per year. On the sales solution engineering side. And some of the things that I have found that are common, that seem to pertain across almost all the calls that I have is, hey, Datto, I'm looking for a single pane of glass where I can manage all my stuff. And the last thing I'm going to say is great. Here you go. Here's a single pane of glass. Because frankly, at the end of the day, it's impossible. Nobody's ever going to have that one single pane of glass that's going to cover every aspect of technology that they deliver to their customers. Of course, all depending on sophistication within your business and the stuff that you intend to sell and deliver and deploy. But at the end of the day, you've got ticketing, you've got RMM dashboards, you probably have networking dashboards for whether you're using Datto networking or other comparative cloud-based networking platforms. You probably have other dashboards for backup, like a backup radar, or specifically a bunch of Datto devices that you go into the partner portal to see what's going on. On top of all of that, you probably have maybe a whole separate documentation platform like an IT Glue, or maybe even something like the Document Manager that is now part of the PSA, for those of you who haven't heard. And you're going to have an EDR interface. You're just going to have a whole lot of dashboards to deal with, no matter what technologies you select and what technologies you attempt to combine. If you take a look at our Datto's competitive landscape, there have been a lot of mergers and acquisitions amongst my competitors. I mean, if you took a look at what ConnectWise and Continuum recently did, some of the moves that Kaseya has been making lately, there's just, a lot of overlap amongst my competitors that is all very fresh, all very recent. In fact, you have guys like SolarWinds that are now rebranding Enable and bringing the Enable moniker back into the industry, and the purple colors even from back in the day. So it's amazing to see that. And as I continue to further look at the different competitive offerings out there, I mean, it all looks nice up front, right? When you look at a technology that says, hey, we've got an RMM and you can add, device backup, add your AV, pick and choose, all these technologies and click them together and then they all just go. It's not really the case, right? When you start to get into the weeds a little bit and do your own discovery amongst the technology platforms that are out there, it's very quickly identified that they're very disparate. There's no true interconnectivity or cross-functionality, or what we call at Datto, unification across their core product stacks. And to my earlier point, that's what we've been doing over the last years, is actually building stuff. And in this space, in the vendor space, we are, if not the only, the one and only, one of the only organizations that only sells the stuff that we build, right? We don't bundle an AV into our antivirus in order to make an extra 75 cents off every time an MSP purchases a license. We only sell the stuff that we build. We sell the stuff that we build and research and develop and take to market as a company. So that has allowed us to really blend these technologies together in all sorts of ways. So let me give you an example. On the PSA side, for those of you that are not familiar with the PSA, I'm just going to give you super mega high level. This is where you run your business, right? This is like a ConnectWise comparative product. It competes with ConnectWise. Kaseya's got an offering that we compete with, but I can tell you that the Autotask PSA platform is one of the longest standing in the industry and is the longest standing cloud-based PSA platform in the industry by far. And this is essentially the system in where you manage your customers, their accounts, contacts, and assets. Side note, assets get rolled up into the PSA automatically by RMM. So when you roll agents, boom, they pop up as assets under the respective accounts because the accounts are mapped to the sites on the RMM side. Contracts, of course, in terms of how you manage and bill your specific customers, right? How do you bill them? A nice thing that I often hear about our PSA versus others is the fact that our tool has the sophistication and the customizability to kind of build itself around the way that you want to run your business, right? So the opposite being, here's a way a PSA works, now you have to convert your business to fit that model. That's not how this works. This is more customizable, more dynamic, more open-ended, in that we want to take a look at the things that you do that you consider as best practice, have that built into the workflows and the processes in the PSA. And then wherever you might need help, maybe you don't know what the best approach would be to a certain process, is something that, of course, our implementation teams can help out with. Now, this also covers things like projects, service desk and time tracking, timesheets and dispatching technicians, tracking your own inventory if applicable, customer-facing reports. Now, all this sort of stuff might be rudimentary, the stuff I'm talking about, to maybe 20 or 30% of the audience. Some of you might not be quite as familiar with this, but bear with me. My plan is to give a little bit for everybody. All the data in this system actually rolls up into these widgets here, which are all dynamic. I can click through to them. They're all very informational. You know, somebody like an owner is going to want to have insight on, you know, do you have any contracts expiring? Do you have any tickets that are not where first response is not being met? Do you have any technicians that are out for the day, etc.? Now, one of the crossover points with the RMM is the fact that the RMM can communicate directly to the PSA API, deeper than API grade, as far as I'm concerned, directly into the PSA. So these boards represent information that I'm collecting from the RMM agents out in the field and delivering that data up right here into the PSA. So if I'm looking at things like server down, server up, you know, disk space or CPU temperature related tickets that might get generated. Some of you may notice that there's actually like printer toner levels in here. So which, you know, of course, infers the ability to manage devices that are not agent based with the RMM platform. Here's some workstation alerts that might be smart disk related or disk space related. And in fact, if I open these disk space tickets, the tickets themselves actually change around really based on where they're coming from. Somebody closed my ticket. That's great. So let me just give you an example of a ticket that gets generated by an RMM agent. So the ticket type up here is right, you know, so we can see it's RMM alert. The alert data is right here in the header. And we've got the body of the information. And what you'll notice over here on the right is because the devices and the sites are all mapped across the RMM and the PSA in a way that actually works reliably and clearly, I have the ability to see that the device is online according to the RMM, who the user is, what the OS is that's on there, the AV, the patch status, the third-party software, and not to mention the ability to take over the device using one of the RMM remote takeover tools being spun directly out of the PSA ticket. Because another nice thing we do on the PSA RMM side is we actually have a little single sign-on process, right? So if you're logged into the PSA, you never have to log into the RMM separately. They operate as one from that regard, and they'll pass the credentials across in order to facilitate that. So what you saw there was actually one of our own brand new remote takeover technologies. This is called Web Remote in the RMM. It's a wonderful tech. It's come a long way. It's, you know, it's out, it's ready to go. It supports all your browsers, even if all you got's your iPad on a beach. That's not going to be the right password. It'll actually get you on any, you know, like an iPad or a tablet or something like that. And I've got the on-screen keyboard here for that. There's all sorts of cool things we've added very recently, like lock after disconnect, view only mode. Does support multiple monitors and in fact multiple consoles. Once I'm in the system, I have a bunch of quick launch I can do here to get into that PowerShell. You know, I got a file transfer handy right here. I got a little reboot into safe mode with networking right off the bat, performance details about the device, maybe some connectivity details while I'm at it. And this is just one of the 5 built-in remote control tools that are part of Datto RMM. Okay. So give me just a second. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bounce back over to the PSA here quickly, and I'm going to kind of segue into another aspect here. But before I do that, I want to share with you this board that you can spin up in the PSA. This is really cool. This is we call this a service compliance. So this is like a global view right in the PSA. So I can immediately see, do I have any servers that are missing patches? Do I have any AVs that are not running? Do I have any third-party applications that require some updates? And if so, what are those devices? And be able to click into those from here. As I mentioned, this is a single sign-on button that takes me right to the RMM. But before I do that, for the BCDR folks in the room, I want to show you a little bit of the API integration between the BCDR, the backup and continuity appliances, and the PSA. So what I have here is a Datto devices board that gives me wonderful insight on all my devices out in the wild. And many of these widgets are essentially revenue generating, right? So if I've got 3 or 5 or 10 or 57 devices out in the wild, being able to track, monitor, manage, and alert on pertinent, relevant data, super useful, right? Here's where I've got warranties that are expiring soon, right? That's a revenue generator. I've got total used space, potential revenue. I've got contracts that need to be reviewed and probably renewed. That's revenue. I've got devices that are getting full, devices that are getting slow, devices that are having issues. And in fact, when you have BCDR device related alerts that get generated, it'll actually create a ticket in the PSA that is custom built specifically for that Datto appliance. So now here's a ticket similar to the RMM alert, but it's a Datto alert, so it's blue. And further to that, I actually have the connectivity. I can connect to the device from here. I can log into it. I can look at it at a glance. I can see the hard drive space, the uptime, if there's a warranty, the serial number, pretty much everything I need to know about the device without having to bounce into the Datto partner portal to see what's going on. Okay, very cool crossover right there. That's BCDR talking directly to PSA. And I've also showed you RMM talking a little bit directly to the PSA as well. Let me go ahead and grab another ticket here. And I want to show you another really cool feature between the RMM and the PSA. If anybody's got any questions, any thoughts, anything they want to throw out there, please feel free. Wow, I've never managed to silence such a huge room in one foul swoop. Okay, let's see here. I wanted to show you one of the other remote takeover tools, but I need a device that's up. I think this one is up actually, the 1003. So what I can do is a bunch of work on a machine, right? So maybe I get a ticket and the ticket gives me an error, right? Hard drive full. And so I might have like a little checklist that I've built into the ticket. So this is great for if you bring on some fresh folks out of school, maybe like a temporary tech guy, that sort of thing. You know, a little checklist that they can chase through on the PSA ticket side to make sure they take the appropriate steps to resolve the issue. And one of those issues might involve the act of connecting to a device behind the scenes. So this is a case where I'm actually going to connect to the device that generated the ticket right from the ticket. And this is going to load up another RMM remote control tool called the agent browser, which is this guy right here. So what this allows me to do is with the RMM, I'm able to manipulate this device behind the scenes. Okay, so you'll see these little gray tabs that pop open up here, right? And I can come in here and I can do all sorts of fun things without interfering with an endpoint user, without them needing to know nor care that I'm actually connected to their device behind the scenes. And you see all these wonderful little tools popping up top. And what's going on here is actually,
Just in case you're not seeing the chat, can you go a little bit slower? Your Canadianism and going too fast. Nobody understands you.
Really? Get out of here. I'm sorry. It's hard to watch the chat and do this at the same time. Slow down a little bit. Okay, I can do that. All right, cool, no problem. So yeah, so what we have here is the ability to, manipulate the device behind the scenes without interfering with the endpoint user. I can in fact send them like a little chat here and be like, hey man, here to help, right? And then that'll pop up right on their screen there. And now that I'm connected, and this is actually a direct tunneled secured connection between the two devices. So there are other RMM tools out there that don't operate quite the same way. In fact, many of them use a remote tool that often leverage some sort of server relay, where you are essentially connecting to a server. That server requests the connection down to the target device, and then that relay server kind of middlemans all the sending and receiving between the two devices. And what can happen is a lot of slowdown, right? And you might not you might throw a command into the the command shell window here, but and it sits there and spins for about 2 or 3 minutes before you actually get a result. This is not the case with Datto RMM, in that I'm literally directly connected. So when I perform an activity here in this tool, it's happening directly on the device at the time that I do it. Right. So if I end a process, if I come in and stop a service, or transfer a file, or edit a registry, for example, or perhaps even execute some of the scripts that come with the tool out of the box. And there's about 130 of these out there. So those of you on the phone that use a common competitive RMM, big bonus benefit here is that these scripts are all standard languages. There's absolutely nothing proprietary going on in here at all. They are all completely included with Datto RMM as well. Things like being able to deploy apps, create admin accounts, change passwords, change machine names. One of my favorite, a network speed test. Maybe somebody calls in and says, "Hey, my internet's real slow. Can you help?" And well, you run a speed test, or you check one of the user definable fields, and it indicates that it's actually super quick. And it turns out it's the 57 Chrome tabs that the person has on their other monitor. So not so much an internet performance issue as it is maybe an error between the chair and keyboard at that point. EBCAC, I'm sure many of you are familiar with. And then one of my other favorite ones is this guy over here. It looks like a bomb. Where is it? There it is. This is I like the political name, the Lost Device Security Suite. It's basically a remote nuke. You can basically remotely nuke a device. And the analogy that I like to use is somebody left their laptop with the secret plans to take over the government. They left it on the bus. And so now they need to remotely nuke that device to make sure nobody gets their secret files. So point being is that there's about 130 different pre-built standard language scripts in here that are built in one of the 7 standards. You got your Python, Ruby, Groovy, JavaScript, Linux, Unix, PowerShell, and Batch are the 7 languages supported. So even if you got your own scripts, you can literally inject them into this tool and use them all day long on the fly. Now, if you remember, we got to this device because of a service ticket that we received. So what we can do is on the way out, on the exit of that ticket, all the work that we just performed on that machine using the RMM can actually get written to the internal notes of the service ticket that got us here to begin with. So again, some of you know this, some of you might not use this or might not be familiar with it. Some of you are, but basically everything I did is recorded, right? So all the file I transferred, the conversation that I had, the commands that I executed, the registry that I edited, the splashtop session that I ran, all written to the ticket for me. So then I, as the technician, and if somebody didn't already complete my ticket, let me just go in and edit it here quickly. I, as the technician, all I really need to do from here is add my time. Because somebody messed me up by closing my ticket already. You know what? Let me just change the status back to in progress here. And that should give me back my option. Actually, I should have flipped it to new, right, Diego?
Yep.
So this is why I brought Diego, because I'm an RMM guy. Okay, there's the complete button. It's brought it back to me. So now I can just hit complete, basically add my time. And some of you might not have seen the new little time slider thing that we've got here. It's pretty sweet. So it's even easier. I don't have to deal with the pull down. Add my time, add my notes, save and close and move on. Or a really cool feature of Autotask PSA is, of course, the speed codes function, in that I can essentially have this ticket autofill itself, right? So maybe it's a common one, a password reset, or I can't work my PST file isn't opening. Anyway, point being is that you can have these speed codes automatically fill out, add the time, and automatically add the notes to the ticket for you. So it adds a lot of the goal here is shaving seconds off every action, right? Every second we can save you is time back to do something more productive. So really cool feature, writes the notes to the ticket for you, come in, add your time, move on to the next ticket, basically is all that takes. And with that, I'm going to pause for a moment. I'm going to see if anybody happens to have any questions, any comments, anything that they'd like to say.
Yeah, Jeff, you're going to be showing the new UI of the RMM, right?
Oh, you betcha.
All right, good stuff.
Yeah, I barely go into the old UI anymore, actually. All right, so
Jeff, I enjoyed seeing those jobs you were using. Those are pretty cool.
oh, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to see more of the jobs that are available. Particularly one that I've been wanting to script is deploying Creative Cloud, because Adobe is just kind of a nightmare to install. And I haven't been able to find anything on the forums.
Okay.
So there's for just Adobe DC, the reader,
Yep.
but not for Creative Cloud. And I've been looking for Datto RMM resources and haven't found anything.
Okay, I got something for you. Don't look, but I'll show you. I've got something for you. I'll show you. All right. I will work that into the next phase here is what I'm going to do.
Thank you.
All right. Where'd the window go that I was using? Okay. All right, folks. So now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go into the RMM and try to uncover some things that might be interesting to existing RMM users and some things that are definitely going to be interesting to non-Datto RMM users. So anybody that uses comparative or competitive products. So here, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the RMM here. All right, so there we go, single sign. I actually had it open already over here just for looking cool, but we'll launch it from here properly. And maybe we'll zoom a little more than 67%. There we go. Make that big and nice. Make this look good. And let me bring up my favorite dashboard, because anybody that knows me knows I like to be a little whimsical. And here I have what I call the primary global mega super dashboard. So this is something I've been having fun with building out on my own. In the RMM. And this is meant to just give me an insane amount of high level insight right away. And I was actually having fun with the custom filter. So I actually spun up filters here. I don't know. I bet if I could see a show of hands, somewhere around half or more of the room would raise their hand if I said, how many of you have fun, facetiously, how many of you have fun managing Windows 10 devices? Or how many of you actually have to do it? And, you know, is it a challenge? Can it be a pain in the butt having to deal with the 37 different versions of Windows 10 that might be out there? Or better yet, you've got a 1709 or an 1803 or something like that on a customer's device, and you know, just one day right in the middle of the afternoon, it just decides to feature update, right? Boom, it's just, okay, it's time for 1903, whether you like it or not. And then that end client, of course, is their productivity goes to zero because their machine just thought it would be fun to update with a feature update right then and there. And the reason for that is it has a lot to do with how Microsoft kind of just, you know, when you have an 1803 Windows 10 deployed, somewhere around a year, whether you like it or not, Microsoft's just going to push that upgrade, right? So, and for every version up until 2004, I believe, it's about a year. So if you take on a new customer and they got a bunch of 1803s or 1709s or 1903s out there that have been deployed for a year or more, they're going to get hit by that surprise upgrade, right? So what our goal is and has been is to outfit our users with the ability to really wrap their arms around that and make sure that that doesn't happen. So by combining the ability to easily identify the different versions and even combining that with some of the Windows 10 upgrade scripts that come with Datto RMM, and combining that with the Windows Update policy in Datto RMM actually give you the ability to wrap your arms around that and make sure that your customers don't get that surprise upgrade. And that is by essentially deferring the update for a period of time that you decide instead of Microsoft, and manually managing those upgrades as you go on your own accord. Okay, if that makes sense. So this is the new UI for RMM. That's super customizable. It's all sort of widgety based, similar to the PSA. Most importantly, we have a dark mode. I mean, you cannot sell software without it anymore, and I blame Apple for that. I also like to call this retina melting mode because it really is. So I'm going to go back to dark mode here. And you can have multiple dashboards and you can share them amongst the users within the platform. So, here's something a little bit more simpler, a little bit more customer specific. So one site. And so I can immediately see his most recent alerts. I can also see, and this is a little hint into the API integration with BCDR appliances and the RMM, an industry first, by the way. I can see local storage consumption and the status of my appliances and the servers that this appliance is protecting at this customer site right in the RMM here. And then over here on the left, we've got our primary navigation. So I've got like my most common sites or my most recent sites, and then I've got my devices and my most recent devices as well. You'll notice here, actually, even in the dashboard, when an alert is generated that is indeed important enough to generate a PSA ticket, it'll actually give me that PSA ticket right here in the RMM. And I can click back through that and open up the ticket. So there's the ticket. So again, a little bit of back and forth between the platforms. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to jump into a customer site here. We'll go into Goldman Weiss, a little law firm we've got based out of Toronto. And this is a fairly small environment. It's a handful of 6 servers. Tulsie, when did you add a new server? I'm going to have to ask you about that later. And we've got only 7 workstations. So it's a funny mix, right? 6 servers, 7 workstations. Who knows what these guys are up to? I don't know. But point being is that this screen here, this screen is designed to give me, and you know what? I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. It looks a little small, even for me. There we go. So this screen is designed to tell me everything I need to know about the site in the blink of an eye, right? Come in the morning, I want to know what's going on. I only want to see what's important. I don't want to have to bounce to 4 or 5 or 17 different screens in the RMM to identify the data that's important to me. So for example, right away, I know the device, I know who's up and who's down. I know if it's a laptop, I know it was last seen, what the OS is, the last user, what the AV status is. And this works for about 20 different AV platforms. It's a universal AV identification and management. So I can pretty much always see if is it running or not, is it up to date or not, is it there? This is your Microsoft patch status. This is your third-party apps, so your Java's flashes and readers. And this is, I'm so old school. Who updates Java still? More like Zoom and Chrome and FileZilla. There we go. That's a little bit closer to time. But I can build this out, right? I personally like to get into things like reboot status. Is there a reboot flag? When was it last rebooted? What are the IP addresses? Maybe I want to sort and manage by hardware spec, right? I want to go in and deal with all the devices that don't have enough RAM. Or maybe I want to sort this by custom collected data that I've achieved through many of the scripts that come with the tool out of the box. See, somebody's asking me about that no data status. I can definitely talk about that. There's a couple of ways you can fix that if you're getting that as well, but we can take that elsewhere. And in fact, these columns, they're all resizable, they're all reorderable. I can filter them all. I can add as many as I want. I can have just 2 for all that matters. And these are all represent all the selectable columns, as well as all the user definable fields that I can sort and manage and use as targets for activity. Okay. Now I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to quickly mention as well on the RMM side, we have agents for Windows, Mac, and Linux. The Windows agent, literally an 11 megabyte file. Those of you that use other RMMs are not going to be accustomed to such an elegant agent deployment. It's literally a silent install, self-extracting executable, deploys in about 6 seconds, shows up fully audited in the dashboard in about a minute and a half. It's glorious. It works. Everything works. The things that I click on work. Wasn't the case 15 years ago with RMM. Nothing worked back then, but now stuff works, which is great. And so here, I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to grab a server here. And I'm going to use this server named Jump as my guinea pig. And you'll notice I actually have more connectivity buttons over here, right? And I actually showed you the web remote already, but I'm going to web remote into this server because this one actually I know my password for. And we're just going to go ahead and we're going to do a Control-Alt-Delete send because I want to show you another cool crossover between the RMM and the PSA. So here I am in a device doing my thing. I'm an end user. I'm clicking. I'm working on spreadsheets. I'm working on Word docs. I'm doing the thing that I do. And oh no, I get a problem, right? So now what I'm able to do is actually come down here and you see the system tray icon. It's like Datto, but that would all be your branding. And the RMM always gives you the option to deploy the system tray icon. But if you happen to have the PSA in there behind the scenes as well, you can give your end user this little guy. The ability to actually take a screenshot and request support in one click. And again, that would be your brand. So, you know, we can go with something like the mouse is broke. Give him a raise. And so now that'll come up as a ticket on the PSA side for you or the respective technician / resource internally, and they'll receive that within seconds of that being generated on the PSA side. So then on the PSA side, you would basically take it, maybe pop it into your work list here on the side and hammer through the tickets that come through. So it's just another convenient avenue for tickets to come through to you on the RMM side. Pardon me, on the RMM PSA combo side. All right, so let me bounce back over here. I'm going to pull up a server. I'm going to try, you know what? I feel like 90 minutes is not enough. I feel like maybe we should have booked like 3 or 4 hours for this presentation because I feel like I'm running out of time already and I feel like I'm going very fast. But because there's a lot of cool stuff we can cover. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend the next couple of minutes on monitoring and automation in the RMM here. And then maybe we'll get a feel for some other stuff that maybe some folks would like to see, or I could keep going. I mean, I'll tell you, Tulsie's got something lined up. Diego's got something really cool lined up. I hope I'm not throwing you guys under the bus here, but that's what you told me. So we can go into some other stuff if this feels too demo-y for you, or if you want to get more technical, we can get as technical as you want. So we'll figure that out in the next few minutes because I do want to show you what I like to call the coup d'etat, which is the BCDR RMM integration. So here I am in a device. Okay, we can see he's online. His name is Jump. I've got a Windows logo here. I can remote control him using my multitude of tools. I can open the asset in the PSA quickly and easily here, or I can run a quick job. And actually, you know what? To that question earlier, I'll show you a quick job. We actually have a script in the component store called Chocolatey. I'm just going to grab that script here, and you'll see that I actually have a couple of variables here. So I'm just going to go with install new application. And the one that you asked me about, I checked it. I thought I checked it. Hold on. Let's go to the Googles. Oh, okay. You're going to make me Bing search it. Okay. What is this? WWPC 2010. All right, so let's go in here. All right, so you called it the Adobe Creative Client. So turns out that that's actually in the Chocolatey repository, Adobe Creative Cloud Client. So all I need from here is this little piece of text, Adobe-Creative-Cloud. And if I punch that into here, Adobe-Creative-Cloud, that will install on that device for me. So this Chocolatey script is included with Datto RMM. I can execute this on one device or 200 devices on a schedule and push out your Adobe Creative Cloud right there from the Chocolate repository. So that should take care of that functionality for the gentleman that asked. Back here on the device, these are your real-time monitors. Big difference with Datto RMM versus many other competitors, real-time monitoring, meaning when monitors get an alert that's triggered, it tells you when it happens. That's actually fairly rare among many RMMs in our space, actually, the fact that it tells you something when it happened instead of waiting 4 minutes or 7 minutes or 11 minutes before getting back to you that an alert was triggered. Not the case with Datto RMM. These all represent the live monitors on here. And you know, any RMM worth its weight in salt can do CPU and disk and memory utilization and generate alerts around those clips. But we've got some deeper stuff in here. Things like, did somebody plug a media stick into their USB port? Are they getting a smart disk or a click of death alert? Maybe their CPU temperature has gone through the roof. Somebody put a phone book on the vent, or their thermal paste cracked and they're getting strange reboots and freezes and blue screens and can't figure out why. Maybe it's in a reboot state and it's slowing stuff down. This is a cool one, Bitlocker, right? I can not only rip out Bitlocker admin recovery keys from registries, but actually monitor the Bitlocker status of devices on the ongoing basis. In fact, when it comes to monitors, these represent all the core monitor types: patch, ping, process, service, event, right? And another industry first, ladies and gentlemen, is actually this right here. Just last month, we added native ransomware detection and eliminator built directly into RMM agents. So it's interesting because a lot of people ask me then, well, when do I use this? Why would I use that for if I have it in my EDR or this and all these questions? And it's like, look, you know what? You tell me. I don't know. This is brand new. And what I've discovered is that this is actually an incredible fit because I think it comes in at around 50 cents US per device. It's the only add-on that we have for RMM. But where it seems to be useful is in cases where you may have customers that have like maybe just a signature-based AV deployed, and they're not really open to swapping it out for full-on EDR. This will give them that endpoint ransomware protection without having to change anything about their environment beyond rolling the Datto RMM agent. And it works great. I think we did some testing. We did some reports on it, third-party reports. It's a very powerful engine, very easy to use. And what's great is not only will it detect it, stop it, it'll isolate the device from the network while actually still retaining communication to the Datto RMM service, which is amazing. So they get red screened, you get the ticket, maybe you got to do stuff, you can actually still get into the device with the RMM. It's pretty slick. And then this component monitor, I'll touch on this really quickly because again, I could use all this time, no problem. This is our own. There's another 130 odd monitors in here ready to go. Everything from monitoring different AVs, bandwidth utilization, Bitlocker, USB, DNS, latency, iDRAC, Exchange, all sorts of Microsoft 365 monitors in here. There's one in latency monitors, file integrity, file availability. And one of the ones that always makes me laugh and reminds me that I'm now an old guy in this industry is the, where is it? My favorite, this one gets a laugh. Memory change. Anybody remember when people used to jack memory sticks out of their office computers because they were worth like a couple $100? So this is a cool one that, monitors memory changes, if you will. Not so pertinent these days, but I remember $50 a megabyte when I was upgrading my 486 back in the 90s. Again, all of these are totally included. They're modifiable, they're editable, supported by the organization, and you get the source code for all of them as well. So, and the coup d'etat that I'm trying to get to here, and this is why it's so easy for everybody else to do nothing on this call, because I will talk the whole time, is actually the continuity unification. So this jump server himself here is actually being protected by a continuity appliance. Our flagship product is called the Cirrus. It's a backup cloud-first disaster and continuity appliance, right? That you deploy in a site and it takes snapshots of servers. I'm not going to steal anything from Tulsie here unless should he get a chance to show some cool stuff. But one of the things we do that's huge that all of our BCDR partners just love is what we call the screenshot verification. So that means when we take a backup, we take an image and we launch it into the data center. So not only is it being stored locally on the appliance at the customer site, it's being replicated in the data centers that are also redundant in the US. We actually take that image and we spin it up in the data center and we make sure that it works. We do your backup verification for you. And when it boots up, we deliver down to the device what we call a screenshot verification. So that way, if you ever have to go and restore something, that last backup is 100% integrity verified. Okay? Because nobody knows that the backup's dead until you have to go and restore it, right? So what you see here is it delivering that data directly into the RMM device in the RMM software. So now I've got the screenshot verifier here. So we're talking about single pane of glass. I don't have to go to the Datto partner portal to look up this data. It shows it to me directly inside the RMM. In fact, I can see all the last 10 backups. I can run a restore, run a backup now, And if I click into the appliance itself right here in the RMM, it's further going to show me the status of all the servers within this environment, any relative alerts that might have been generated, and all the other information about the device right here ready to go. And it looks like we've got no alerts, so that's always a good thing. So very killer. And I will touch on one more industry first here. If I scroll down to the bottom of this server, I get a lot of stuff, right? There's my UDFs, there's all my apps, software, hardware, drives, specs, activity, anything anybody ever does on this device is logged and recorded. And I can see related devices. This is really cool for an RMM. I know that Mr. Jump Server here is actually connected to this Datto switch. He's a guest of this ESXi host, and he's being protected by this Datto appliance. In fact, if I click through to the switch, by the way, we have API integration with our networking gear into the RMM, another industry first that just hit the market a couple of months ago. Right from here, this switch, smart switch, I can reboot them. I can look at the asset, the PSA. I can access the network manager or cloud manager. I can see my live utilization through here. I can physically disable ports. And in fact, I can follow the breadcrumbs again. I can see here, hey, you know what? My vCenter is connected to this access point, which is connected to port 5 on this switch. And if I click into that vCenter, because we've got amazing ESXi monitoring, I'm getting hardware grade data via SNMP, right? At temperature, health, fan, power supply. If I scroll down more down this guy, here's all the guests on this ESXi host. There's all the data store slicing and dicing, and then also how it's being monitored by the DC with the node on it. Okay. That was a lot of stuff in 50 minutes. We have a couple of options here, folks. And if somebody wants to give me some guidance or not, I'll keep going. It doesn't matter to me. I think what I would probably do next, if you left it up to me, is rope in Tulsie to show us something interesting. Otherwise, I can keep going through this, or if anybody has any questions they want to throw out there to get any of us to answer or address or talk about, anybody willing to do so? You can all still hear me, right?
There's a question in the chat, Jeff. Does that feature integrate with other OEMs?
Other equipment manufacturers. I think you're referring to the networking integration. The answer is it doesn't do it that elegantly as it does with our own gear, right? Of course, we have API integration with our own networking gear. However, our integration is not limited to our own networking gear. I do have all sorts of pre-configured monitoring policies that include many SNMP OIDs and throughput monitors for different brands, different manufacturers of networking equipment. And you can also HTTPS and Telnet and SSH into all of those devices remotely as well. So we do have great overall SNMP management and monitoring, but just a little bit more elegant with our own networking gear, of course. All right, what's that? Well, can you show how to integrate networking? Oh, so it shows in the RMM. Yeah, sure, check this out. If I just go under setup and integrations, I can just throw in my continuity key right here for the BCDR. So I just go into the partner portal, grab the keys under the API tab, load them up into here, boom, pulls them all from the partner portal, and I just map them to the associated, I just associate it to the respective site, and then those will stay linked. It's the same process for the networking, by the way. You just add the API, boom, they all show up under the respective customer site. The integration was a nice touch in the new UI. Thank you. Windows 7 versus Windows 10 patching is a different animal to deal with in Datto RMM, to say the least, my friend. I mean, it's actually somewhat easier in Windows 7 in some ways because you don't have to deal with Windows updates as a separate thing as patch management, right? Windows 7 is a legacy environment. You're basically going to handle the updates on a Windows 7 box through the patch management policy, not so much the Windows update policy, which is more modern OSs, Windows 10, Server 16, and 19. So it is doable. You can control service pack rollouts. I'll tell you one thing with Windows 7 I learned, if it's not already on SP2, don't even try. Just get it on SP2 by, is it SP2 or 1? I forget now, but there's a service pack and it's either 1 or 2. It's 2 if that exists, has to be on that before you're going to get any sort of patch control on that device, actually. Somebody says, do a part 2. Asking again, in case it was missed, when will the conversion be to the new UI? Oh man, I'll tell you, I've been waiting. just to give you some interesting insight, our web remote tool took a little longer to fine tune than we expected. That being said, it actually pushed the full-on development of the new UI out a little bit. The good news is the things that are out are that much more reliable. I'm hoping to have basically the last three major components that need to be moved into the new UI is the reporting module, the COM store, and I think the patch management policy. All those guys need to be moved over into the new UI stat. I'm expecting, personally, and this is not by Datto, probably within the next 4 to 5 months, you probably won't need to go into the new or the old UI anymore. So hopefully that answers your question. How to show BRD info in RMM? BRD info. I think you're talking about the BCDRs, the appliances. So for example, I can see in the dashboards here, the storage level, if more or less than 50% is used for their appliance right here in the RMM for this particular customer. And I can see the status of all of their servers being protected in that environment right here as well. And then also if I go into the individual devices I showed you before, device in the individual device, I can see the backup status and the screenshot verifier right in the device detail right here. Can you disable old UI for users to force them to use the new UI when that time comes? Force them, eh? That I don't know. I kind of doubt it. However, you can change which UI it defaults to when you log into the system. So I set mine to show the new UI by default, so you can just give them that. And then at least it'll load that by default instead of the previous UI. Can you disable this is more for me to force myself to start using it instead of using the UI as a credit. That's funny for yourself. I thought that you would have meant, who said that? Do you really refer to yourself as little and whimsical? I've always just thought of you as vertically challenged. Listen, let me tell you something. Those that are vertically challenged are the tall people bashing their heads on doorways and stuff all the time. I think that's more vertically challenged than coming in at about 5'6". Can someone please have settings stick on the portal? I set dark mode, but changing screens kicks you out of it, and it always starts in burn eyes mode. I've never experienced that. I would love to see that replicated. And worst case scenario, we can take that to support, actually. I haven't seen that before. All right, man, you guys are loading them up quick. I like it. What do you want to do next, Des? Maybe I'm going to get you involved. I mean, I can keep going. I would suggest we give Tulsie an opportunity to share some of his expertise and insight on the BCDR side. That would be my suggestion. Otherwise, I'll just keep going.
That's literally what I was about to say.
Excellent. All right. Well, let me close out. I'm obviously not going anywhere, but thanks everybody for listening. I hope at least something was insightful and informative to at least one person in the audience. If so, then mission accomplished. But needless to say, any questions, I'll throw my email in the chat and shoot me questions anytime you want. I really don't care. I don't mind. It's just my job to talk about tech all day. That's all I do, man. It's the best. And with that, thank you. Thanks for listening. Keep the questions coming. I'm gonna keep an eye on the chat there for everybody else as well.
All right. Well, hey, Jeff, thanks for that. And everybody, thanks for sticking around. I appreciate you guys actually, spending time with us today. And, Jeff, you did crack me up with changing memory, because in high school, I did exactly that. We actually stole memories from certain systems and, boost up other machines that we needed to play Quake back in the days. If you guys remember the old Quake game.
Listen, I remember having to manually reconfigure my autoexec.bat to get that darn thing to work properly. And that was always a challenge.
All right. So a little different spin I'm going to do. So typically I show demos all day and show screens. I want to talk to you guys about something obviously that is important. What is happening in the last 12 months with the pandemic. You were actually doing some change, transforming your own business in terms of, save you money, save your clients money in many regards. But how do you actually create operational efficiency? So since I'm the backup guy, I'm going to focus more in terms of transferring towards backup excellence. And there is, in talking to MSPs in the last 12 months, the last couple of years, ultimately, there is a few things that I've seen happening over and over. A is moving towards, improving efficiency around technology. We want for you guys to actually look at what you have today from a backup standpoint. If you're running more than one product, you're running Acronis, you're running Veeam, you're running a bit of Datto, you might be running a bit of old school tech as well. Ultimately consolidate that, because from the standpoint, if you're having your techs, become specialists in all of those regards, that is not practical. It's not practical to scale, but it is not practical, to actually continue supporting those things, because you might be actually not aligning the right people to the right product out there. So you might be having level 3 people actually focusing on solving problems that level 1 can actually be focused on, because clearly there's a piece of technology that is being used at the client site that is very much out of date. They require a bit of expertise, and clearly that cannot be easily translated to somebody who is junior. Now, I'm not suggesting to be, selling Datto. Datto is obviously a way to achieve things like that, but there's many other products in the marketplace that you can actually achieve this with as well. So look at where those products that you're using across the various sort of clients, understand the complexity, and understand where your techs are actually spending their time. If it's your L3 have to be spending their time actually solving issues in terms of fixing backup issues on products, you simply have to actually do a realignment there. Bring in products whereby it can simply be resolved by L1 reps. The other sort of thing is actually looking at reducing your burn rate. And what I mean by burn rate is, what are you actually outlaying from in terms of capital, in terms of spending on those employees? If you have a number of employees, again, that are in the L1, L2, L3 area, got to reposition the L2 and L3 guys in terms of focus on billable project. Solving backup issues is not something that you can typically be billed for, because you already charge that client for that service on an ongoing monthly basis. So again, this is coming back in terms of aligning the right resources to the right projects, to the actually right technology challenge that you might be facing. The other big thing that I noticed was a lack of building proper runbooks. And what I mean by a runbook is not necessarily on a day-to-day task that you might be doing. I mean, you can certainly build great runbooks in that regard. But from a DR standpoint, when you deploy a backup solution, ultimately you are actually putting something that is quite different than, I should say a DR solution, deploying a DR solution. It's quite different than actually pushing out something that is simply backups. You want to be able to actually do annual DR testing. And as part of those things, you need to actually do a lot of lessons learned in terms of capturing data, who those stakeholders are, who the stakeholders are at Datto, who the stakeholders are that you're representing within your organization. Ultimately, what is important to those people? Identify the critical systems, as well as to identify the minimal viable resource. When you do go through an exercise like that, that information needs to be captured somewhere. A runbook is a great way of capturing that data, because ultimately you can actually present that as a finding back to your clients and say, hey, we have done our due diligence. This is what we need you to sign off on. Bringing in a part of a world-class solution like Datto on board, that is just the solution aspect. You have to actually follow through by building a runbook and actually show them you do have a plan in case they actually suffer maybe a flood or fire, they suffer some sort of system failure locally. How are you planning to manage that? And proving that to the customer, give them a lot of good sense of idea that, hey, you know what, this thing might cost me a couple extra dollars a month, but now I see the plan. I see why it's needed because of the extra mile that you're actually willing to go for us. The other thing, other areas is that consider things like, fail back and fail over. If you can be failing over in a Datto and you want to actually fail back, have a plan. If you never have done a local DR test on the system, it's something very much you need to actually go through and understand where those helping hands are coming from. Is it coming from our team? It's coming from your team, and certainly record those lessons that is learned as well. And really the last item here, it's going back to security. I mean, we see tremendous amount of backup infrastructure that is consistently being targeted by, insiders. We're talking about malicious individuals on the external of the organization as well. We want to certainly follow the 3-2-1 backup rules. I mean, this is certainly old school where you have data on a production system, you have a couple copies, on actual storage locally. You got maybe a couple copies on other sort of media, and you have one in offline state. But looking at it from the standpoint in the world that we are in today, that might not even be possible because guess what? Your client is not going to be investing in a tape library. But you need to actually invest with vendors out there that's going to actually give you backup immutability. The idea is if you're going to be working with a vendor that can actually give you an immutable repository, or you're going to be working with a vendor like Datto that can actually give you immutability in the cloud, it is something to pay attention to. It's something to actually mention to your customers as well, because ultimately this is peace of mind, for your business, it's peace of mind for the client as well. And the other thing is, understand data governance and compliance. There is so many situations I have run into in the last point. It's as doing business, we are not doing the due diligence in terms of talking to the customer and understanding, what are they liable for. We want to understand, if we need to keep data around for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, we don't have a compliancy. Are we deleting data at the end of the compliance? And that's usually a big one, is we end up just keeping everything around, and you end up getting sued or whatever not, because you back the data up and it's now within that facility. You now have to reproduce it because you actually have it. So know when the compliance cut line is, and make sure that you work with us to get things like data destruction certificate, where our team can simply go into the data center and actually blow away certain content that doesn't need to be there. Keep you safe, keep your clients safe as well. And really the last big one is around appliance lockdown. I mean, you want to make sure that these systems are hardened and locked down as much as possible. If I breach your network, I shouldn't be able to actually easily log them with a username and password. You want to be able to make sure that things like you're forcing the login from the partner portal, where it's controlled by 2FA, disabling things like common ports on the unit like SSH, and make sure even if SSH is enabled, that has to be done through keybase, whereby there's an RSA key that you can generate in terms of actually using a certificate to gain access versus a simple username and password. Encryption is not a big area. Again, look at your organization and this idea of zero trust that's been floating around for the last little while. We want to make sure, you're protecting your organization, but you're protecting your text as well. If you have confidential information you're backing for a client, you simply don't want any of your text to log into the client facility and download information off that system. The idea of zero trust is encrypt all the data. Don't trust anyone except, if you're the owner of the business, or there is a core set of individuals that you ultimately will be trusting to actually deploy that system and manage it. They're the only one with the encryption key, or be hands off altogether. Let the client set up that encryption. So if the client set up that encryption, they will actually going to need to be involved in terms of any sort of recovery, because they hold the keys to their kingdom at that point. There's a number of questions here about compliancy. Ultimately, that'll have to evaluate whenever we are looking at becoming compliant in any area. If we're looking at something like NIST, or we're looking at the CMMC and folks in the US, and then there is a number of other compliancy. Ultimately, for us to actually make the jump and become compliant, it's usually $2-3 million exercise. We need to have enough partners and enough clients that are actually requesting something like that for us to actually go that mile and get that compliancy done. We will, however, give you the tools with the necessary security controls so you can actually lock the system down. Compliancy is always a much more bigger topic, because we need to understand for the organization what controls they're looking to test. If it's simply data encryption, or encryption at rest, encryption in the cloud, of course we can give that to you. But there is much more bigger play it here, whereby we need to understand, what environment that device is going to be living in. What else are they expecting in terms of, making sure that proper access controls are in place. But once we have a better idea on those things, more than likely we can certainly pass those controls. But again, at a whole, we cannot say, we are HIPAA or FedRAMP compliance or one of these other sort of compliance standards, because these are frameworks. There are tremendously number of rules in there. We need to understand what ultimately does that mean for a BC or a vendor like Datto. What are exactly are they trying to test? And simply for an organization like yourself, it's not a checkbox that you can check off and say, yeah, you know what, we are HIPAA compliant or we are X, Y, or Z compliant. That is simply not the case. We need to understand what those controls they are trying to measure. So with that said, let me go ahead and pause here. I'm going to actually kick it back over to the team. This is just what I want to share with you, not demonstration of the actual product, things that you should be thinking about. So again, think about the operational efficiency. This is ultimately what it means from your business standpoint. What are you spending today? What does your burn rate look like? How do you actually reduce that? Where are your employees actually spending their time? Build a runbook automation, build credibility whenever you're actually in the marketplace, trying to differentiate from yourself versus X, Y, or Z vendor out there by providing that runbook. Certainly take the security at hand as well. You want to make sure that you put the right policies and best practice in place, but you also want to actually secure the systems that you're deploying. So with that said, Diego, I guess I'm going to kick it to you.
Sure. And I mean, guys, as Des was mentioning, it's always better to have sort of a guided topic that you guys want to sort of go through. The PSA is quite large, right? There's quite a bit within it. So for maybe the next tips and tricks, maybe we can focus on a specific topic. For example, I did this for a few partners yesterday, and we focused on the basics of service desk, right? And you guys may be a little bit more advanced, but we focused on primarily speed codes, issues and sub issues, SLA, and ticket category. So we gave some tips around those 4 areas, right, of the system. Does anybody have questions, anything like that we can sort of go through? If not, I can show you guys a little bit of what we did in 2020.4 and a little bit of what's coming in 2021.1 if any of you are interested, just so you guys have a sense for what was released and what's coming out pretty soon with specifically Autotask PSA. If you guys have any questions about process scenarios, anything like that, happy to
if I could interject, Diego.
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe I like what you just said at the end there. I mean, we can get into specifics of the thing, but I think for the time allotted and to cover as much of the audience in one foul swoop, the stuff we did recently and the stuff to come in PSA, I think would be the direction to go for the time that we've got left, unless somebody completely disagrees.
Yeah, and I won't take too much time at all, but just to give you guys, because a lot of times we do these releases and people don't necessarily know, right? What's out there and how can I use some of these pieces. So just to give you guys a little bit of an idea, some of you might be using IT Glue, Passportal, right? A number of these document management type tools. For those of you leveraging Autotask PSA, just so you know, there is document manager capabilities within the system. This is something that if you have a premium license or above, you have access to today. If it's not enabled within your environment, just contact us and we'll enable it for you, all right, behind the scenes. But essentially what this allows you to do right within the PSA, similar to what you might be doing in, let's say, an IT Glue, is that you can create a document, right, and you can tie it to a customer or an account record. That way, when you're working a ticket, underneath that client, you have easy access to those documents so you can pull them up very quickly and see, a checklist, a run book, whatever the case may be against that specific client. So that's something that we're working on, and this is a focus for our product team, just to sort of enhance this, right? Because a lot of folks that might be leveraging document management tools may only be leveraging 15 to 20% of those tools. Or there are people that are using Excel files and Word documents and OneNote, right? That could benefit from having everything under one roof. So this is something maybe to look at. Even if you don't necessarily use the full piece of document management, I think this is pretty cool right here. So you can track domains and SSL certificates right within the PSA. So as part of this document management sort of module, what you can do is you can actually create an asset, put the asset category of domain, and what that does is as soon as you put the domain in there, it'll reach out and get the expiration date and a few other details about it. If there's an SSL certificate tied to it, it would also create an asset right underneath that related to that domain, and then also grab the date valid until as well. And now you can create widgets, you can create workflows based on that, and the system will start to give you, right, recommendations, or I should say, alerts when it's 30, 60, 90 days out from that domain or that SSL, sort of renewing or expiring. And that's something I've seen a few folks struggle with, so I'm glad, we put it into the product. And again, it's all available to you, today. It just may need to be enabled behind the scenes. All right. For those of you using recurring tickets, especially those of you that have been using the PSA for quite a while, this was always a little bit of a sore topic, because as some of you may remember, you would create the recurring ticket and then it would just create those 300, tickets right below it. And then you would have to, create a queue or create workflow rules and sort of hide them. So something that was released in 2020.4, just so you guys know, is that there is the ability to tell the system hide, right? Sort of don't create these tickets just yet. create them and bring them up, a day or two when those tickets are going to be due. So kind of nice to have that. Just keep that in your mind, which is kind of cool. The other piece as well, and this one I was actually excited about because I pushed for this one myself. So I whispered in products ear and was able to get it in there, is the opportunity and ticket. So a common scenario is, somebody calls in or emails in and they're requesting a laptop. Well, now I want to quote them for that laptop as an example. And, when I win that deal, I don't necessarily want to create a whole new ticket and now have to maybe merge them and have a bunch of duplicates out there. So something that's actually available now is right from your ticket, you can create an opportunity and create that quote. Or if you have a quote and you win it, you can bring those items back into the original ticket. And now everything is in one swing, as you can see right there. All right. So again, these are things that are available to you today, and really good stuff, that some of you may or may not have been aware of. All right. And there was a lot more in 2020.4, but these 4 were the ones that I sort of, wanted to highlight, at least for you guys and the partners I was talking to yesterday. What's coming in 2020.1 or 2021.1, there's quite a bit in there. The ones that I'm kind of excited about is there's going to be a new account UI, just so you guys know. If you remember, what the ticket looks like, what the task looks like, you guys have the ability to create a category and kind of mold, right, and say what fields, what requirements, what things do I want, what do I not want. You'll be able to do that as well for accounts going forward. So now you can say, for my leads, here's the information I want. For my customers, here's the information I want. Or maybe it's a platinum customer. Here's the info I want. Here is a bronze customer. Here's the info I want. For those of you leveraging Autotask for quite a while, you remember those little tabs, that we used to have. So that hamburger menu at the top left is going away, and now you'll have the tabs right there, which I dearly missed, from working with those for quite a while. So brand new sort of account interface, and it's going to make it a lot easier to, sort of interact right with that page. Still sticking with some nice points here. Just so you can have account alerts, you're going to have contact alerts. So if Jeff Dryall, for example, is a pain right to me, which I want to note that, so I could actually create contact alerts right inside of the system, aside from the account alert as well. So when I pull up a ticket, not only will the account alert pop up, but now when I put Jeff Dryall on it, contact alert pops up and says, "Hey, this guy's a pain," right? So right there is going to be beautiful.
Oh, I'm done here. And
then the last one that I wanted to show, and again, there's other things coming out in the release, but just the nicer ones, I think, the same treatment that ticket time entries received, we're also going to do that for task time entries. So you're going to have the timeline, the ability to actually put hours and minutes instead of 0.25 in there, and rich text is coming to notes and time entries too on the task side. All right, so just a little glimpse at what's coming. Hopefully that was helpful. Again, some of these things you guys may be aware of. Other things maybe not so much. The one takeaway I think you guys should sort of take with you, at the very least, even if you're not necessarily sort of leveraging the document management capabilities, this domain and SSL tracking is actually pretty cool, and it can save you a ton of time and again have it in one place for sure. All right. Any questions on any of that? I know I just went through that pretty quick, but just wanted to, give you guys a little bit of insight as to what's coming there. Questions? All right, sounds good. So for that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And I did see some things flow into the chat. Let's see.
Lots of stuff in there I can't answer on the PSA side.
Is document manager or knowledge base available within mobile app? Not at this time, Todd, but mobile is a big focus for the product team. I want to say the first thing we're going to include in mobile is expenses, because that's been an ask for a bit of time. Opportunities are also going to be thrown into mobile, and most likely knowledge-based documents will also make their way into mobile, but that's a little bit more of a ways away. That is more of a function for password management so what we have today within the document manager is not necessarily, password management, right? The PSA isn't necessarily true password management, as maybe like something like Passportal or IT Glue or MyKey or Password Boss. You can track passwords, but it won't be as sort of, flexible, right, as some of those tools out there. It's really more so for, keeping track of documents and documentation a little bit closer to clients that you might want to keep. But definitely good to have, right under one roof. Is this a shot at IT glue? No, it's not. It's not necessarily a shot at IT glue. Again, like I mentioned before, it's a really good question. I get asked this all the time, with prospects, and I say, yes, it is. No. Now, as far as IT glue, it's not meant to replace it, right? Like I mentioned, if you are leveraging 15 to 20% of what IT glue offers, or Passportal, or anything like that, why not use something that's free and included with the PSA? Right? That's really sort of the main idea behind including document management within the system. We're not necessarily going after Kaseya's business with IT glue. They have years and years of development, ahead of us in that department, right? You can use it to complement IT glue, because within the PSA, you can put reference links that will take you to outside platforms or outside URLs, right within the PSA. Okay. How exactly did you say to enable Doc Manager? You can put in a ticket, or you could just simply contact your account manager, and they'll put that request in for you. And we just handle it behind the scenes, and the next time you log in, you'll have it. Okay. We'll be able to export that info for a client on onboarding. So export that info for a client on offboarding. I read onboarding. There are some exporting capabilities, but for the document management, not at this time, but that is something that's coming out. Actually, we're unleashing more and more functionality. So there's going to be revisions, rollbacks, and approvals for document management added in 2021.1, and exporting capabilities will be, going forward too.
Hey, Diego, it's Steve.
Yeah.
So for those of you that are members, we've got a session coming up at the end of March. I want to say March 23rd, but I might be just picking a date out of my head. With Joe Rourke from the development team on PSA. And
Nice.
Some of these questions, it'll be nice to sit down with Joe and have a conversation. March 26th. So luckily my head corrected itself. Thanks, Laura. March 26th. So sign up for that if you want to have a chance to talk to Joe a little bit about roadmap and some bigger picture plans that are not in roadmap yet. It's kind of thoughts, dreams, what we'd like to see, that type of conversation. And we can meet with Joe on that. And Des, I might have made all of that up about what we're going to talk about with Joe, but that's what we're talking about now with Joe.
Who's Joe? I think that we're kind of coming to the end of our time here. If I'm correct. So I did want to, I put in a chat. In the chat there's a link. I'll put it, make sure I highlight it again. There's two different things. So there's a survey for you guys to fill out. If you could just let us know your feedback, what you might want to see for the next tricks and tips and techniques next time. And then just really any feedback you have is super appreciated. This is our first event like this like this. I'm nothing. I don't know how to do any more
Nothing's translating. It's not coming across right.
What you guys want to see next time. This is our first one that we've ever done like this. So your feedback is super important and will help what we do next. And then of course I have to point out Tech Day, MSP Tech Day, on the 18th. It is all based around security. So if you guys have any interest in security and you like hearing Brian speak, I mean, that's not what I meant. If you like any interesting on security, please come and attend. Ryan Weeks is throwing the whole event. Is all on all around security and cyber resilience and how to keep you guys secure. Even if you're not talking Datto products, it will be beneficial to be there. And those are all my things. Thank you so much.
Awesome, Des. Thank you so much. Jeff, fantastic job. I think the good news for your session, Jeff, is that it's all recorded and people can slow it down when they watch it back. So it'll be fine. You that wasn't just for you, Eddie. Jeff gets excited and he has a lot to share. So,
That's true.
And there was a ton there. There really was. It was fantastic.
Thank
Tulsie,
you.
Diego, great job as well. Good job, everybody. Thanks for showing up for this. I believe we will be doing this one again second half of the year or something similar. Second half of the year. Let us know what you want to hear about. That's the whole goal to this. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks.